This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Hey everyone, it is me. We are here. Joseph is here too. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, what's up?
Boom, boom, boom. We're recording.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey everyone.
Hey, everyone.
I am recording this on the computer now.
Hey everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey everyone.
Boom. All right. It says it's recording. Boom, 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 boom. I am apparently recording.
The entire bottle of control. They're all exactly the same.
Crypto art, and then what it really is an NFT.
Wow.
Eddie wants to slap the bag.
So this is the next best thing.
DeFi is going to be a bubble.
It's provably scarce.
With Mad Dog.
Crypto, gold, and silver.
Transparent substance.
Take my money, start a war with it.
Without further ado,
Cheers to you, brother.
Get shit done.
because the system has to collapse before that.
My Corona.
Cheers. I feel much better now.
Cheers.
Wow, that was heavy.
Boom. Welcome. Blockchain Booze number 110.
Wow.
Hey, Beverly, Brian, David that are joining us in the stream, and everyone else. Los Angeles drinking vodka, just vodka, no mixer. I'm not strong enough for that. I'm excited for today because we have a lot to talk about. But really quickly, before I jump in, I want to thank Lunar Crush for restreaming this, and Blockchain Radio for sharing this as well, and having this syndicated throughout the week. And if you're watching on one of those streams on LinkedIn, wherever you are, and you want to hang out with the rest of the crew, go to meet.blockchainbooze.io. You could ask questions to our guests. You can join us and turn on your camera at the end of this panel. Everyone can turn on their camera, join the community, and hang out. And some of the crew goes really late, does after parties. It's a lot of fun. We've had people start companies in the chats over the last couple of years. Like I said, we're at the 110th week straight of this. And our main topic today is actually, discussing what we're doing in a couple weeks, less than 2 weeks in New York, Security Token Summit. So like I told all the regulars, if you come to the chat, DM me a little later if you'd like to participate in this event. I may be able to hook it up for a few people, although we are sold out in New York. It's going to be a really, really great event. Welcome, Ami and Bob. Ami, you've been here before. We've talked about Onera. But I want to give Bob, who's his first time on Blockchain and Booze, the stage first. Bob, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, about Cornish law, and everything. So we can. I'm going to do this side-by-side thing. Pat may be joining us from Oasis Pro also, so hopefully he joins. This is just a fun side-by-side. Actually, I like having a little room.
Yeah, I was starting to feel like one of the Brady Bunch, but my congratulations to you all for obviously organizing a great event. I'm really excited to be a part of it. My law firm is over a year and a half old. I've left Big Law to concentrate my work primarily working with innovators in the financial markets and the investors who participate with them. Our firm has offices in New York, Miami, and our headquarters in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. For those of you who don't know me, been admitted in practice in Wyoming for 15 of my 27 years of practice. And I was one of the people that helped out a lot in getting the Wyoming SPDI legislation passed and being an active member of the Wyoming Blockchain Coalition, including some of the things for captive insurance with crypto, municipal bonds with crypto. Been a big supporter of the Wyoming ecosystem. I've spoken in Switzerland, Dubai, Japan, all over the United States. And for those who don't know Wyoming in the crypto world, you need to get to know it. But more importantly, you need to get to understand it, because once you understand it, there's a world of opportunity out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, on one hand, we have, I guess I should set the stage, and I'd like Ami to introduce. Actually, let's go. Ami, give a quick introduction, because I'm going to set the stage between what we normally talk about with the and by the way, cheers. Bob is having looks like some whiskey.
Cheers to you all.
I opened something that was
Everyone,
in the fridge.
yeah.
This is Norwegian aquavit from. It is probably a good substitute for Scotch, but very mellow. It is Linny aquavit. Goes around the world twice, over the equator in sherry cask in a cargo ship. So
Wow.
it is delicious. So that's my
That's
pitch.
wild. Wild, yeah. It's really very cool to look into the sort of supply chain and the where those kind of things go and how they travel around the world before they get to us. Ami, give us your background and tell us a little bit about Onera and what's happening, and then I'll try to set the stage for security tokens in general and sort of digital securities for everyone.
Cool.
A lot of the folks in the chat are excited about Wyoming, so we're gonna have to talk a little more about that as well.
Cool. All right. So, I'm going to be in New York for Security Token Summit. So that's going to be exciting.
Oh, really quickly, I'm just going to interrupt because Pat, it looks like you're in the Remo Live where everyone else is. You're going to need to go to the StreamYard link that's in your emails or in your calendar. I put it in the chat also on Remo. Click there. Anybody else that clicks on it, I'm not going to bring you on stage. Maybe at the end of the show. I don't know about that though. But Pat, click on that link. Sorry, Ami. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I've been with in the world of security token pretty much from the start, because I was part of launching the world's first fully tokenized fund. In the early stages. Where I was at a fund, and I was also making investments in multiple security token projects and as a VC. And then I moved away to start Onera, where Onera is trying to bring security token, or the way that we call them in the institutional world, digital securities, into the institutional world. Take private markets, bring them on the blockchain, take a lot of the things that are pioneered in crypto, things like, wallets, ledgers, the ability to move and trade directly, hi Pat.
Hello.
And so on. So we do in Onera, we focus on that, on bringing that to the institutional market, where the regulated market operates, banks, big asset managers, exchanges, and bring this, the goodness that was invented in crypto to the rest of the financial world, which is, a few hundred times bigger than crypto, and still lives in the pre-digital age. So that's our mission, to bring it to this entire market and implement things that were invented by the crypto entrepreneurs and pioneers. Everything from issuance, trading, all the way to DeFi and NFTs. Everything is going to be not just in crypto, but in across the financial markets. And we're starting with private markets, and I'll talk about this more later, but that's what we do with Onera.
Very nice, very nice, and perfect timing, Pat. I know you came on a little late, but we're just getting through the introductions right now, so perfect timing, Pat. Welcome. This is your first time on Blockchain Booze, so thank you for joining us, and excited to see you at STS in, like I said, less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, as am I. Thank you so much. We can't. It looks like a great program. Great speakers. In regards to tonight and what you've put together, and really appreciate the invite. I was watching you guys. I couldn't get in, but cheers. So. Cheers. Now I must say there's no alcohol. It's a Virgin Red Lotus. So there you go. A little about myself. I'm a Wall Street guy by background, going back 25 plus years. as is most of my team, with deep blockchain experience as well. On the very similar to Ami's comments, where it's all about implementing what's occurred over the last 10, 12 years on the blockchain and in crypto specifically into the capital markets. I was Oasis Pro Markets was actually incubated inside of MakerDAO. So if you're familiar with the DeFi area, MakerDAO is all about collateralization and primarily crypto, but a little over 3 years ago was thinking about real world assets and what could occur with real world assets. So I worked with them. I'm a Maker OG, so I've lived through everything you've read about. It's all true in the Maker community. A lot of brilliant people, and it was a very exciting time. We got approved in December 2020. We're a broker dealer in our subsidiary Oasis Pro Markets. We got approved for an ATS, which is an alternative trading system, similar to an exchange for structured products, equities, public equities in the form of over-the-counter equities. But the real unique aspect of our approval or registration was that we can do digital cash, DAI, USDC, Bitcoin, ETH, CBDCs, and we got registered for CBDCs before anyone really knew what a CBDC was, and for digital securities. So it's really utilizing the blockchain for and the benefits of the blockchain. No counterparty risk or very little, lower costs, immutable record, and full transparency, and moving that over into the capital markets, which a lot of folks, especially in the public equities market, would view as already available. But if that was the case, GameStop wouldn't have occurred 9 months ago. Blockchain will erase that. If that was true, AIG and the whole Lehman debacle wouldn't have occurred, because really what led to it was a lack of information and transparency. So that's where our focus is. We're based here in the U.S., but we have global ambitions.
Very cool, very cool. So what I wanted to do right off the bat is sort of, in a way, set the stage, and then I would like you guys to chime in and tell me if I'm doing it right. But I'm constantly explaining to people sort of the difference between the regulated side of our space and the DeFi side of our space, right? And I always throw my hands up like this, because like one is the banks, the financial institutions, the regulated market, not necessarily that they're participating, but it's fully regulated, right? Participating here sort of guarantees compliance if it's being done right. And then there's the DeFi side. Always throw my hands up and go, this is the unregulated stuff. This is the Wild West. This is participate, do your own research, do your own everything. You should be doing your own research there too. But I mean, every single thing that you're doing here, there is no gateway, right? It's partly the greatest thing on earth, but it's the most dangerous place on earth, right? So you got to be really, really careful. But what we're talking about today is this side of it, the fully regulated side. And everything everyone is doing here is, regulated in advance and done in a way where it's fully compliant, right? Did I explain it decently? You guys, I know, Ami, you're building some things and some interoperability layers and all sorts of things like that, but did I at least at a high level frame it right?
Yeah, definitely. You framed it right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So yeah, look, when you look at crypto and people that are used to crypto, things are actually very, very simple. If you want to build two wallets, one of them connect to Ethereum here, another one connect to Ethereum there, and they can trade, and that's it. Done. Super easy. Because all the data, all the flows, everything is on the blockchain. When you're talking about security tokens, maybe 10% is on the blockchain. 90% of the data information flows are outside the blockchain. So if you have one token issued by one tokenization engine and another token issued by another, it doesn't mean that they can immediately trade with each other. They have to, whitelist each other. They have to follow all sorts of flows and support all sorts of ideas. So in order to actually trade in securities, it's much more complicated. And I want to give a few simple examples of how it translates in daily lives. So in crypto, for example, if I send Bitcoin to you alone, and then everybody finds out that actually you are a Russian oligarch and we have to put you under sanctions, it's not my problem. I sent you the coin, it's now yours, it's somebody else's problem. But if I'm issuing a security and I sent it to you, and now you have to be sanctioned, it is my problem because I'm the issuer. I have to take care of it. Completely different. Another example, if you buy an NFT has a link to a website, and somebody takes over the website, and suddenly you have a 404, then somebody who sold it to you will say, "Oh, sorry." In the banking environment, there's no "oh, sorry." They're going to get fined billions of dollars if the NFT suddenly disappears. So these are simple examples, but it's much more complicated. So actually, securities are much more complicated to do than crypto. But the bottom line benefits are actually very similar. You can give users a wallet, and I can talk for hours about how many benefits you can get from actually utilizing it. But you do have to solve some problems that are very unique to securities that you don't have with crypto.
Yeah.
And with Monero, what we're doing that.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I would like to get maybe Bob, your opinion here, and Pat too, running an ATS. There's the front end of all of this stuff. One, I will say, like, Ami can't overstate the sort of the regulatory hurdles, right? And it's not because Ami doesn't want everyone to participate in everything. It's because the government has made those rules, right? And there's like, I came from my original participation in this world, in sort of online investing world, was building crowdfunding platforms. And when the Jobs Act came out, and when public solicitation became legal, public solicitation, for everyone watching, means that me as a startup raising money, I'm allowed to share and talk about it on the internet or in a newspaper, or say publicly. Before, it was illegal. I couldn't literally come to a public forum like this and say, my startup is raising money. Now that's allowed. But the second that became allowed, if I broke the rules in terms of, like, if Ami signed the doc to invest in my company after I said that, and he lied to me and said he was an accredited investor, but he wasn't, I'm the one that's liable as the startup. Imagine if I'm a startup founder and a year later, Ami goes, I wasn't actually an accredited investor. I need my $25,000 back. Legally, I would have to give him his money back, which doesn't make any sense because he's the person who lied to me 7 times and signed documents saying he was an accredited investor. But the second
there's somebody hypothetical, yeah?
Yeah, it's a hypothetical. There's all hypotheticals, of course. I am not publicly raising money for my company. But in this hypothetical world, I mean, in the real world, that's a deal breaker, right? So one of our good friends who will be at the summit, Jor Law built a company called Verify Investor that kind of checks some of those boxes and takes some of the liability and all that stuff. But it's mind-blowing. It's stupid. But what's great about it all is that Ami and Pat and some of the folks in the industry and all of our friends are building technology to make that legal, or not make it legal, make it streamlined, right? To make the process easier. We might not love the process. Most of us don't love the process, but we have friends like Bob to help us navigate it, and we have technology built by our friends to make it as easy as possible to deal with, right? A lot of folks are saying, private markets or regulation, SEC, all these things equal, only accredited investors' participation. Pat, on an ATS and in a public world where you participate, is that true? And what kind of deals can the public participate versus only accredited investors? And
Yeah, it's a great question. And by the way, your overview of your experience with Reg CF, it was terrific. I remember those early days.
Well, I will tell you, the first version of our platform we built, it was called my company was called Invested In. And we had no idea. We were just a bunch of young techies. We were working at MySpace at the time. And we're like, wouldn't it be great if this social media technology could be used to help companies raise money on the internet? We had no idea it was illegal at the time. This is 10 years before the Jobs Act. So the second we launched the site, I had friends who were lawyers like, what are you doing? You're breaking law. I'm like, this is the most American thing in the world. I'm helping my neighbors raise money from my other neighbors. And they're like, no, And then I had to learn about all this stuff. So I've, of course, over the years become an expert. Not that I originally wanted to be a securities expert or anything like that. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've known enough and had to power enough platforms for other people doing this stuff. But yeah, it's wild. But Pat, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it was great. So I'm just going to focus on Oasis Pro Markets today. We have our holding companies, FinTech and Blockchain. We have other subsidiaries, but I'll focus on the ATS. So yeah, we're regulatory and compliance forward. And in regards to the question regarding accredited investors, this is where it gets really interesting. Our platform can allow for retail as well, and accredited investors, institutions, QIBs, et cetera, qualified purchasers on up, as well as broker dealers. Now, where we're starting, it really depends on what the issuer wants rather than what we want at the end of the day, because the issuer can control, in a way, which investors can participate. Unlike an exchange where there is a whole set of rules that go across all the securities offerings, since we have so many different types of securities, the issuers can demand or start off by saying, I only want qualified institutional buyers, right? And that's our base, and that's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to start. We're in the early days. We're on our way. What I'd like to say is we're on our way to the ballpark or the pitch or, whatever your favorites, or the rink, whatever your favorite sport is, right? We're on the way there. Eventually, what the blockchain will allow, that technology, is for retail, not just accredited, to be able to participate in a number of securities that they have no access to today. So I'll give you an example. RMBS, residential mortgage-backed securities, right? Structured product, typically done through 144 offerings. 144 is for certain institutions, and there's a minimum size in those. We can envision, we're having discussions along these lines, but we can envision a world where a RMBS issuer issues RMBS paper, let's say it's $1 billion, and then fractionalizes it, allows it to be at, I don't know, $1,000, $100 increments, and allows that and allows retail investors to invest in it. So what does that do? Beyond the benefits of blockchain for the RMBS issuer, which are all the back office servicing costs that they're currently paying, that digital to digital wallets, to the earlier comment, can alleviate quite considerably, so they don't need to double check wire information, addresses, all that KYC AML information is already built into the wallets and has been approved from a compliance regulatory standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then and so they have those benefits, but they're also increasing their investor base. So it's not just the qualified institutional buyers, but it'll be all this retail, which the risk reward, the yield opportunities in residential mortgage-backed securities, depending on your risk tolerance, could be very interesting from a diversification standpoint. So we see a world where retail eventually, and this may be a decade out, 5 to 10 years out, will be able to participate in a number of very esoteric types of securities that today they don't have access to.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, people can be experts in everything, right? Like it's even 10 years ago, we think about the proliferation of the internet and technology and all that stuff, right? Like I worked, joking about working at MySpace, right? It seemed like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't, right? That was maybe a little over 10 years ago, 12 years ago, let's say. But even more recently, my job after that was at IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. And you couldn't watch a full-length movie streaming on the internet when I worked there. It was not a good user experience. The film festivals who stream movies would not rate the movies and do their submissions and things like that on the internet because it was like offensive to them, right? They were like, the director of photography is an artist and, his art can't be pixelated on the internet and you need to see it in all its glory on film. And this is, just maybe 8-9 years ago, right? And so if you start thinking about in 8-9 years, filmmakers didn't even want their movies on the internet, to today where, every movie is on the internet, and we probably watch 99% of our content streaming versus just on the TV. Just what's that going to do to information in regards to, this is why Wall Street Bets is happening and these kind of things are happening. And, I know many of my friends in the crypto space who, maybe got into, we were joking about this, earlier before we came on screen, who got into the space because of NFTs, or they got into the space recently, and maybe their day job has nothing to do with finance, but I would say they probably know 90% more than the average financial advisor that went through the old school, went through the ringer in the old school traditional way, right? And so those folks may not be millionaires. They might not be able to participate in what you're discussing, but they know about it. They understand about it, and they deep diving into the research in a way that anyone else can. So that's why it's like extra, frustrating to continue to watch these rules, hopefully slowly change, but it's exciting. So Bob, from your angle, the changes are happening. Some of them are happening in Wyoming. They're happening maybe a little too slowly in the retail person's opinion, or maybe the everyman's opinion.
Right.
That I feel I'm a part of. But from a legal perspective, do you see it opening up more? Are you a little concerned about what you're seeing, in the sort of Wild West side of things I was discussing? Would love you.
Well, I think there's an undeniable need for the United States to recognize that their regulatory scheme here has to open up. There's just no doubt about it. Even for the clients I represent that have interest in Wyoming from overseas, I can tell you there's literally a line of companies from Switzerland, the Middle East, the UK, that want to have a U.S. presence to conduct business in the United States and create jobs and actually provide opportunity for both investors and the communities that these companies are going to be in. These are good corporate citizens who really have a lot of social conscience that we want in our country. And it's a problem, because one of the problems, in counseling people in this space, is that the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I want to avoid dealing with the U.S. at all. And I have to convince, my job right now is to convince them, no, you can't ignore the largest, the largest capital market, that you can put your hands on. But you do have to understand that there are some pieces of it that really don't work with a lot of certainty. And those that do work with certainty take a little bit more understanding than some people might be willing to expend. So, just the Wyoming infrastructure, for example, I'll just get on my Wyoming soapbox for a second. But, one of the largest exchanges in the world, frankly, is the state of Wyoming. People don't understand that the state has so many intra-state exemptions for the conduct of business and digital assets that if I form a Wyoming LLC or a Wyoming partnership, I suddenly have access to over 500,000 people, over 50,000 companies, and all the other people, all the other entities that are in Wyoming, including what we have are private trust companies and private banks for the ultra wealthy. So what does that mean to somebody coming, from Switzerland or the UK who wants to access the US markets? It means that they have to really evaluate what their objectives are, understand the sophistication of the people that they're working with, and have some realistic business expectations as to the cost benefit of it. Nobody wants to come to the US and get $5 investors. I don't think that's the objective. If that is your objective, fine. It's going to take a lot more than that, to jump through the hoops, and ultimately you'll come to the cost benefit solution. But somewhere in there's a sweet spot, and people just around the world really just need to settle down a little and find it until we actually get on the bandwagon and join the rest of the world in innovation rather than stifling it.
Yeah, I think that that's an issue, right? There's BB Studios put 5 cent investors, but the idea though is, what I kind of came to the conclusion of, as long as a lot of these regulations exist in the crowdfunding world, Reg A plus, Reg CF, and all these things that we could dive into, but isn't really the main topic for today. But we're my own feelings are driving us towards. So I'm going to shift in a second towards the institutional side of things.
If I may, I'm sorry, just
Go.
to let you know, Wyoming is actually one of the few states that has its own crowdfunding statute.
But you have to be dealing with other folks in Wyoming, right?
And there are Reg CF portals in the state of Wyoming.
It's really cool. It's really cool because I think in these micro economies, it's not so micro compared to the rest of the world, but it is, maybe compared to the whole US. There's some really cool innovation happening that it's mind blowing is not available for everyone else. And what you'll learn is, because of these regulation, crowdfunding, you have to fit a very sort of, if you fit the right model, you fit the right profile, crowdfunding can be really, really great. But for the rest, it really doesn't work. And unfortunately, you have to go bigger. You have to do things in a different way, because you almost punish yourself by going that route, because like Bob said, the cost benefit doesn't make sense as much as we want it to make sense.
So if I could just jump in. So I agree with Bob's comments about specifically, I'll do anything to stay out of the US, but I think that was more, I would say 6-9 months ago and prior, that was very prevalent. What we've seen in the last, since fourth quarter of last year, a complete change in attitudes from crypto players, not the smaller ones, but the more established ones, groups that have been, let's say in the crypto space, or institutions in the crypto space over the last 3 to 5 years, who were adamantly against any regulation whatsoever. We've been having discussions with a large number of them about the realization that they want to be in the US, they need to be compliant, they need to work with regulated entities such as ourselves and others. And I think that it's not a tidal wave yet, but I would say the overwhelming majority of our discussions in the last 6 or so months have changed dramatically about that.
I think that the main, just the main kind of feeling amongst entrepreneurs and people at that early stage is that they've scared us too much, right? Like, especially if you're in crypto and blockchain, even people launching NFTs, that seem innocuous, are scared. And I meet entrepreneurs all the time. Like, I take meetings every day with different entrepreneurs, and so many of them are clearly American, for example, right? And we don't only invest in American companies, we invest companies around the world. We have no geographic focus. But I talk to someone, I'm like, oh, where are you from? You sound like you're from the Midwest. You sound like you're from Texas. You sound like you're, born and raised in California like me. You start talking to them, you're like, where are you from? And they go, oh, I'm in Switzerland. I'm in Singapore. I'm in Thailand. I'm in somewhere else that's not the United States. Oh, what brought you there? You have family there? You just love it there? What's up? They're like, no, we just didn't want to launch this company in the United States. And it's like the first time ever, because our whole lives, everybody's like, if they vote that way, I'm leaving the country. If they go this way, I'm leaving. But everyone is all talk, right? But now, for the first time ever, I think the borders are so small. The internet has brought us all together. People don't really mind moving, and it's hurting the United States a lot. So we could spend the whole time talking about this, but I want to cover lots of little things and be a little more on the surface, because at the end of the day, we're going to be talking about all this in depth at Security Token Summit. The live stream is going to be free for everybody to watch on securitytokensummit.com. I'll throw this up here on the 16th. If you're in New York, the 15th, we'll also do a fun little cocktail hour and stuff like that too. But for everyone else, we're going to be talking all sorts of things. And of course, one of the main topics, being in New York, talking about regulated securities, is going to be the sort of institutional adoption of this stuff. And I'd like to focus on that, because I know that Omni, what Onera is doing right now is sort of on the forefront of that. And I know a lot of representatives from some of the world's largest financial institutions are going to be participating in the event. what are some of the things they have to look forward to? Because I know that like we do talk about the market size, right? When we were talking about crowdfunding and the small stuff, it sounds small, but the private securities market in the US alone, I think, is somewhere around $7 trillion, right? So digitizing that, bringing it online, and then globally, it's huge, right? So what do we have to look forward to?
I'll throw in some numbers. I mean, the whole crypto market is what, $2.5 trillion, right? Give or take, depending on the day, $2 to $3 trillion based on the month you're in. Just unicorns are worth $3.5 trillion. Just
you mean unicorns like tech startups worth over $1 billion?
Tech startups, pre-IPO companies that have decided to stay private longer and do not have their shares traded on any public shares. We have a subsidiary of Onera called Symmetria that is now launching a platform that will allow employees to basically sell their shares, and they will be digitized, and they will be able to stream. And if we connect with Pat, they can be traded on Oasis because it's all digital, right? And the securities are coming from a company in Israel, issued by an Israeli company, or in the UK from a UK company or US company. So that's an example of a market. If you look at the real estate market, just the institutional real estate market is $10 trillion. Private equity funds, $9 trillion. Each one of them is bigger several times than crypto. But then, if you look at trading capacity, you look at that market that I just mentioned, private equity fund, $9 trillion market. They trade, changing hands 1% a year. Okay, crypto can do 1% a day sometimes, right? So it's very illiquid markets. If we can provide them even the minimal liquidity, and when I say minimum liquidity, it means if you can take a transaction in private securities or private equity funds, if someone wants to sell their shares in a private equity funds today, it's a 3-month process. There is no market. It's very hard to find buyers. You have to sell the whole thing, and you have to sell it at a discount. If we could take a private equity funds and tokenize it anywhere in the world, and then again put it on our network and make it available through Pat's exchange, then everybody can buy it one click, and then we can move from 1% a year to maybe 5% a year. That's a 5x on a market that is tens of billions of dollars every year. So there's just so much potential that is massive to low-hanging fruit. So we don't have to wait 5 or 6 years until we're going to start to see actual real value. The value is immediate. And I think that the problem currently that is stopping the value from happening is not technology, and it's not really even regulation, because we know I've done my fund 4 years ago, and since then many people have tokenized things, so we know how to do regulation. In my view, the problem is fragmentation. The problem is that there's going to be dozens of sources of those securities, and there's going to be dozens of destinations of these securities, and none of the sources have more than 2% market share. None of the destinations have more than 2% market share, and they're all different, and they don't know how to talk to each other. So the market can't grow, because the private equity fund is coming in, $1 billion private equity fund is not going to go on a network if they don't have any distribution. So that's exactly what we did at Onera. We created a group of financial institutions. It's a group that includes about 80 financial institutions, meets every other month. And we came up with a protocol that is open sourced, decentralized within the financial ecosystem. It's called FinP2P. And through this protocol, every source of assets can connect with an adapter. We will then aggregate and basically normalize all the different metadatas and flows around it, and offer it to destination as a simple API. So a destination like Oasis can connect to a single API and basically drink all the assets that come from everywhere, not being bothered with which network they sit on, which blockchain, private, public, how they do the KYC. Everything is normalized into one stream. And I think that once we do that, you get distribution, you get liquidity, and that's when the market is going to see the big assets coming in, because they will know that they can actually approach
Isn't this
90% of the market rather than 2%.
Am I right in thinking that this is almost very analogous or similar to the old school sort of stock exchanges and the way they worked, and then coming online and being digitized and being accessible, right? Because I think you used to literally have to be in the room.
Better. It's
What?
much better. The technology is 10 times better.
Well, no, I
because-
know, but
Yep,
the analogy is there. You just have to be in the room. People had to have a seat on the stock exchange, right? And then they'd have to call a broker, send your guy to go and raise their hand and get the piece of paper and make the sale and do the thing. Now, you
Yeah,
know,
but even
the
today,
good old
we all,
days.
yeah,
The
even
good old-
today, you look at
I mean, think about it for a second. How many stock exchanges there used to be? Remember, there used to be the Boston Stock Exchange, the Cincinnati Exchange, all these places where people could trade and find different liquidity solutions for their financial needs. And now through consolidation, the larger markets really have consolidated. So in a way, the fragmentation, I think, actually represents an opportunity for astute traders and those institutions seeking alpha to obtain liquidity in assets that, frankly, they wouldn't have had liquidity in before. That's the challenge for a lot of these large pension funds, the CalPERS and the TexPERS and all those folks. They're looking to get private equity returns, but they want that liquidity, and these markets are going to provide it. And it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I think it's exciting because you'd hear about it, right? Being a techie and being in the finance world, but not quite being at the, at that level, and maybe learning as I'm going too, being younger. I remember people explaining to me like, oh, I just got Facebook and I bought Facebook. And you're like, wait, what? And they went to Second Market or one of these others, right? And they would people who were wealthy enough would spend, I think you had to spend like $100,000 plus pre-Facebook's IPO to basically buy shares from a Facebook employee. And there was a broker in the middle dealing with it. And humans had to interact with humans. It would take months. And then maybe somebody would buy $100,000 chunk of pre-IPO Facebook stock off of a person. And like what Ami's discussing, and I know what Symmetria is doing, and a lot of the companies that are sitting in that FinP2P network are basically allowing, the more that streamlines, the more that's available, the more liquidity there is there. But also it's very easy, not very easy, but it's not hard for those unicorns that actually have a lot of interest to price. And so at any point in time, anybody can make an offer on anybody's private shares and who's open to it. And anybody who has private shares can sell them as well, put them up there, kind of like a bulletin board system. But imagine if everybody shared the same order book, right? Or they can. Anybody who wants to tap in can share it. And all of a sudden, we can start trading private shares as if they're public. And I think that's the beauty of it all, right?
Yeah, it's definitely coming sooner than not. And Tommy's point, FinP2P, we're big fans of it and what Onera has done there. It's basically a centralized order book, right? That's what on a global basis, which isn't available right now. But there are differences with the electronic trading. Example to today, when electronic trading came, they went to a centralized order book very quickly, but the rails were all in place for that because, the stock exchange had been operating for 40 plus years, right? DTCC in 73. So they had that all in place, discount brokers and all that. With what we're doing on the blockchain, those rails are still being put in place, right? Yeah. So there's work to be done to get it to that point. So we can't, I don't think we can do Robinhood tomorrow because of gas fees. And we've got to figure out gas fees.
So, think of what Ami was talking about when he originally created his first security token, right? One of the first security tokens that ever existed. And we were talking about it at the time. And the idea is that we're digitizing something. So there's bells and whistles and maybe there'll be more liquidity. But in reality, by putting something on Ethereum and selling it on one particular exchange and not making it compatible with others, you were actually making it harder to trade than the piece of paper. But today, the rails exist for interoperability and bridges exist. And I see Kevin in the chat talking about Tezos, for example, and he is one of the greatest Tezos hype men or cheerleaders.
We have a Tezos adapter. I have to say, we have a Tezos adapter, which is actually open sourced. So you can look for a Tezos adapter on GitHub, look for a Tezos adapter for FinP2P. So if you have securities on Tezos, you can expose them into the FinP2P network. And then anybody any destination any exchange, bank, private wealth management, and so on that connects the network can actually see those assets and put them in front of clients to actually invest. And when the client wants to invest, it will be routed back and executed at the source. So Tezos is supported.
And I'm a huge fan of Tezos. Everybody knows that. But also for any securities on Ethereum, also for any securities on any other chain or in any other financial institution silo or in any jurisdiction around the world, right? Because that's the biggest issue. If I want to buy a share of a stock, but all my money is in Schwab, right? Because that's where my retirement was in my full-time job, or in Fidelity because my brother, who's a financial planner, told me to put it in Fidelity. How do I buy the security that lives on a specific exchange on a specific blockchain without taking the money, transferring it to a different place, then transferring it again, then buying a token, then making the purchase? And it's a huge pain in the butt. But like Pat was saying, I know on Oasis, you can settle with Bitcoin, you can settle with DAI, you can settle with USDC. You can do the same thing on what I know Ami is building on FinP2P. And it might be some work up front for the lawyers. I'm looking at you, Bob. But once it's done, every financial institution already has your KYC, right? If I'm if I go to Wells Fargo and that's my bank, they already know who I am. They have my social security. They know if I'm an accredited investor. They know where I sit in the stack, and they can expose the deals from the network that fit for me, that I'm allowed to participate in. Or if I go to participate in another deal, they can put their hand up and say, sorry, you're not a qualified institution, and only qualified institutions are allowed to participate in this deal. It's so much more efficient. From your perspective, Bob, I think I know the answer to this, but do you see this as something that's amplifying, your abilities and your reach? Do you think of this as like, oh no, the more they simplify this and make it, the less work I'm going to have? How do you see this from a legal perspective standpoint?
Well, it's always evolving. I mean, one of the great things about being in the financial services arena is that people are always coming up with ideas to make the transfer of funds or the deployment of funds more accessible, more easy to use, more swift in terms of execution, and of course more accurate. Where I think where the rubber meets the road on a lot of this is frankly where people are getting information, and the consolidation, whether directly or indirectly, of these various exchanges can be done in a manner so that a trader right now who looks at his Bloomberg screen would be able to pull up symbols or tokens, symbols of digital securities the same way they would be able to pull up anything around the world. That's really, I think, the place where this is going to go, where you're going to start to see some of these. I think it's an information technology where it's really going to grow, because all of these portals and things that people are using, the basic Fidelities, the Bloombergs, the Dow Jones and all that kind of thing, they're really lagging behind in intelligence in digital security, in digital assets. But as soon as all of that is there, and therefore the money manager, the bond trader who is allocated $300 million of a large bond fund, then those options start to become mixed into the more traditional markets, and you'll start to see more and more acceptance of it as time goes by. I think it's really cool to see, and there are institutional consultants out there. Cambridge is already trying to educate large pension funds about the coming digital wave. They know,
and I think this is a stepping stone into, they're already listing Bitcoin and doing things like that, and I think that almost leapfrogged this space, which is weird to me, but it's because there's demand from the institutional side. But this is actually much easier from them from a compliance standpoint, and much less risky for them from the standpoint of as far as I know, with talking to their teams and their compliance. But we're going to see a lot of the biggest financial institutions participating in a couple of weeks in New York. it's really fun to see it. I want to jump, if anybody has any questions and anybody want to come and not on this stage, but join a table after we're done in about 10 minutes and turn on their camera and hang out with the rest of the community, come to meet.blockchainbooze.io. And I know there's already some questions there. I want to try to hit up one or two before I ask you guys to recap and tell me what you're looking most forward to next week, and then or in about 10 or so days. And then we'll sign off for the night and let the community hang. But there is a question here, about exchanges, and I think I think talking a little bit more on the private market side, or the smaller company side in the crypto space. But they said, how do we solve the problem of exchanges not listing security tokens? So I think they're talking about the Coinbases and the FTXs of the world not putting security tokens in their list of potential tokens. And then, also, it says, and requiring projects to get legal opinion that they are a utility token. I think that's the biggest thing. I will say that they have to get legal opinion letters to cover their butts from some reputable sources who will take on the liability, right? If a token is out there, they can't list it unless there's some really strong opinion letters, right?
Right.
But Alona, they need two things. They need, first of all, to get an ATS license, and that's not an ATS license at least. But then they also need an API like ours to give them actually access to multiple security tokens. So that's an easy question.
But I think they're talking about if they're thinking about, like, if they launch a security token, how do they get it listed on an exchange?
Yeah. So, Pat,
it's just going to get more and more difficult, right? Today, I think yesterday, there was an announcement that the SEC established a task force just for digital assets, primarily digital asset securities, which is
enforcement task force, right?
Right, exactly.
It's weird because that's not their job, right? The SEC is not supposed to do that.
Well, and they doubled the staff. They
There's
have
a lot of things they're not supposed to do.
So you need opinion letters, et cetera. And there are a number of tokens trading right now where there's a question: is it a security, right? So that's what we'll see where it goes. I mean, that's a whole other discussion all of us can talk about, right? SEC by by enforcement, regulation by enforcement. I as a Wall Street guy, I never saw the regulators say, "Hey, this is a new area. Let's just back off and let it go." And with Gensler in there, it's the approach that I've always seen throughout my career, which is, protect the markets, the capital markets, and frankly, their primary mission is to protect the individual investor. So it's all about disclosure, et cetera. So how do you get it on? You have to jump through these hoops. All three of us. Ami, Bob, myself, Alan, Alon, you've gone through it yourself. That's what we're doing. Yeah. We love the regulators, right? With a big smile on my face, and compliance. But we understand, and they're working hard. But at the end of the day, we have to jump through hoops every day. And now that's trickling down, unfortunately, to some of the security tokens.
Yeah, and from my perspective as a person who, I've made my full-time job to invest in startups, people innovating and things like that, it was offensive to me as a startup person. And then it's like, now I'm seeing it again and again and again, and it drives me absolutely bonkers because, like, the worst thing about everything, right? No matter what side of political aisles you're on or anything like that, is hypocrisy, right? Like, it's really hard to see somebody say something out loud, but what they're doing is actually the exact opposite, right? And I'll say this from my perspective. You guys are running regulated businesses and things like that. Bob can maybe say it from his perspective because he's trying to deal with it. But from my perspective, it's just offensive, right? Like, it's not true that an accredited investor law protects anyone. It does not protect anyone, right? Especially in a world, in a country, in a place where there are laws that are much, there are things you can do that are allowed that are much worse than losing money investing in somebody that's creating jobs. By the way, the number one job creator in our country is private companies, is startups and small businesses. And what do we need in this country more than anything else is employment and people being productive and working and innovating. And we want everyone to have a high quality of life and live and do their thing. But the one thing that they're stifling is the one most important thing we need in this country, right? But it's okay. We can buy as expensive as a car as you want. You should be able to. Let's inflate the price of every house. Let's do everything that we're doing and allow you to go to Vegas, allow you to gamble. But invest in your neighbor's company and give that person a job. We're going to get in the way. It's
not to knock the U.S. on this event today, but I'm a really big fan of the Canadian Venture Exchange when it's used correctly. And I think the U.S. probably needs to create an exchange like that, where somebody can get something listed, get money raised, and then actually do a deal or something that actually gets the thing up to the next level. We really don't have the institutional infrastructure for people to access the markets the way that they ought, the capital markets the way they ought to. If I have a $2 million company that I want to, bring out, I should be able to do it without having to worry about, am I going to, do I have to forego going to the United States because I don't want to offer anything to, I have to worry about 99, 499. What am I an inadvertent mutual fund? Am I an accidental broker dealer? I mean, there are reasons to do things outside the U.S., but sooner or later, we've just got to get to the point where, crowdfunding is great, but we need these exchanges. People need exchanges because that does open up the access.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, right? The liquidity and what Ami's talking about, Pat making these ATSs available to people. It's what we need, and we need to support it. And what I'll say is, we're going to have former regulators, current regulators, some politicians joining us in a couple of weeks. We've had, a friend of Blockchain Booze at this point, because he's been on a few times. We've had some of the members of the Blockchain Caucus here. We're going to have them at the event. It's going to be interesting to see because, even Hester Peirce publicly responded, even just on Twitter, almost just like one of us trolling the SEC's announcement yesterday of that new enforcement group. So, I think that it's happening, it's changing, but, we'll still be critical. We still will participate, and we still love this country. We're all here participating, right? Ami, you're in the UK, and we're building for the world, right? But we are, it's really interesting. It's really exciting. Guys, I want to go around one last time for you to give a plug of your company, where everyone can follow you. And why don't we throw out what you're most looking forward to at STS? Maybe that's not your company, something that maybe you saw on the agenda or a person you're excited to see. I'll do it the other way around this time. Bob, I'll start with you, and we'll go back to Ami since first one on the show. Actually, I think I'm doing it the same route, but it's fine. Okay, go, Bob.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to just seeing people again and being amongst friends old and maybe making some new ones as well, seeing some familiar faces from events. I know some of us are, getting back in the swing of things, and it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to seeing the reaction of some of the larger capital markets participants to see, how ready they are to discuss and accept some of the new things that are coming about in our space, because there are a lot of interesting things in different asset classes that people have to really think hard about in terms of, am I going to be participating in these parts of the markets? Everything from commodities, securities, receivables, derivatives, whatever. I mean, we haven't even gotten into that security token discussion, but there is that whole world. But for those who are interested in accessing the Wyoming ecosystem or exploring what Wyoming can do for your digital asset venture, feel free to email. It's pretty easy. rcornish@rcornishlaw.com. And
so rcornishlaw.com is where to find you as well, right?
yes, yeah, rcornish at rcornishlaw.com. The website is in construction right now. Should be done pretty shortly. But you can drop me a note. I'm on LinkedIn, and always happy to have a chat with people about the great state of Wyoming.
Awesome. Pat, why don't you give us yours and your plugs as well, where to follow you guys and where to go to Oasis Pro Market.
Sure. No, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this. This has been terrific. I look forward to seeing all of you in 10 days or
Likewise,
so.
yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun. STS, what am I looking for? Just to echo some of Bob's comments, the large TradFi firms, I'm really intrigued in regards to what some of the private discussions we've had with several of them, not all of them. I'm interested to meet some of the other players as well, and to see how that's echoed at STS. In regards to what's being shared with us regarding the rails being built, the infrastructure, because it's a clunky system here in the U.S., right? We have transfer agents, we have custodian. You don't need any of that, but we have them because of the 3334 Act. So that's what I'm most looking forward to, as well as you, and seeing people is always great. And Oasis is all about partnerships. We are a global company. We are here in the U.S. We're feet on the ground in the U.S., but in other parts of the world, Asia, EU, Middle East, UK, parts of South America, we're in discussions with potential partners, feet on the ground. We're not going to do that, and we're going to work with all of them. So we're open to having discussions with a number of people. We're a full service investment bank, so we're doing stuff in the DeFi space. We're doing our ATS is going to have AMMs, collateralization. We haven't gotten into all that, but we can talk about that in 10 days. Yeah, we're all about DeFi. Remember, I started at MakerDAO, so everything we do has a DeFi component eventually. And we can talk more about that at another time.
We're gonna have to do we're gonna do the event, and then I think we're gonna have to do like a recap version of this after the event, like commentators coming in after the game and doing the thing. We're gonna have to do a version of that after as well.
Oh, that's great.
Where do we go? What's the website for Oasis Pro? It's
oasispromarkets.com. And my email, feel free to reach out, is pat@oasispromarkets.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Happy to connect. And I've built a great team, and they're all eager to really dive into the space. So we welcome you reaching out, and thank you again for inviting me.
I'm excited for the event, and again, we're gonna have to dive in way deeper and pick maybe a more deep subject to really dive in, because it's tough to stick to the surface, which we didn't really totally do, but we did a little. But Ami, what are you looking forward to? And then tell us where to follow Onera everywhere.
So Bob, you mentioned information before. So I'm looking forward to, I'm going to have a fire chat at the conference with Pat O'Mara from Invenium. Invenium is a company that's, collecting information about private securities, like PE funds and real estate, and putting it on a very kind of, very efficient database that allows you to see all the information about a specific asset. Everything is anchored to a blockchain or multiple blockchains to make sure that you have the kind of the verification. So I'm going to speak with Pat about their plans, about how we are going to work together with them and so on. So that's an interesting component, because I think that information is definitely a big part of the kind of digital revolution. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. And meeting all the people that I know from the industry and new people as well will be fun. In terms of finding us, onera.io. I'm Ami at onera.io. We're hiring like crazy. So product people, engineers, in the space. Welcome to approach if you wanna, if you're interested. And also, okay, so you're hiring. Everybody's hiring. It is a growing market, right? It's happening. I can say that, you mentioned before there's something, Pat, about the last 6 months being different. We've 5 times more business now than we had 6 months ago. And before that, it was hard. It was difficult, but now everybody understands that the future is digital. The entire financial ecosystem, everybody's envious of being able to click a button and take a loan, which we allow on our network, like DeFi, without a credit check against securities. That's just something that doesn't exist today in the market. So, and if you're an engineer or anybody else building tokenization engines, and you want to see how to connect to our network, a good example is to look at, as I said before, the Tezos adapter to our network is open source, so you can see how an adapter is built, and you can just find it on FinP2P adapter Tezos, on GitHub. It's just there. So that's the whole information.
Awesome. And it's onera.io also, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Sorry, I may have repeated it and made you guys all repeat your websites at the end, because I'm also reading the comments in the chat, and my ADD gets me when I see the reels going down. Everyone has all sorts of fun things. I think they like the idea of the commentator style recap of the event. They were joking. There was I think Jim, what did he say? It was funny, so I have to repeat it. It was Jim posted, "That's right, Bob. Over to you, Pat." It just sounds like we're watching a football game right now, and
back
so
to
good.
you. Yeah.
Exactly, especially with your headset today, Bob. That's so good. But guys, thank you so much. We covered, like I said, just a tiny bit of it. There's going to be so much. We're definitely going to have all of you guys back. I appreciate you, being on and taking the time. Thank you, Ami, for staying up. I think it's 2 a.m.
Yeah. Wow.
And we'll see you guys all in New York. I do need to say to everyone who's joining, one, come to meet.blockchainbooze.io if you want to jump to the table. This is the info for STS, SecurityTokenSummit.com. We've been talking about it. If you're an hour in, you've figured it out already. One thing is that the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be going to these events. I'm going to be traveling around, and we're going to do Blockchain Booze. It may take a different form. I'm going to try to stream whatever form it's in, but I'll make sure the networking is online where we can hang out online. But I will try to stream from the Draper Venture Network, a private event that's going on. I'm going to try to do a Blockchain Booze live and do something funny for next week. Regardless, the community will be online, and we'll be able to chat and jump into tables. So we keep the online open no matter where we are in the world. And the following week, I'm going to try to do it in New York. It may end up on Wednesday instead of Tuesday for a scheduling thing, but we cannot miss a week. It'll be week 112. So, I mean, after 112 weeks, we're not missing a day. So make sure you're following me on Twitter, and I'll message on all the DGA chats too. But if you follow me on Twitter, that'll be the best place to find out where to find me in real life if you're in New York and we do something. But thank you, everyone. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Likewise.
Terrific. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.